Hey guys, so in my defense, I would like to say I've noticed that the past few videos I've done, I'm always wearing the same shirt, but I only have so many nursing shirts that are easy to breastfeed in, and that's what I wear every day. So my bad, I made sure to wear a different shirt today. So today's video is a request. I'm sorry if I'm talking kind of quiet. My baby's asleep next to me and I'm hoping he'll stay that way throughout me filming this, because this will be a little bit quicker than last week's video. But today's video is a request from Cortland Peria. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that last name, but thank you so much for the request. Oh, he's awake. This is about a serial killer by the name of Luis Garavito. Now, Garavito was also known as La Bestia, which is Spanish for the beast, and he is a Colombian rapist and serial killer. He has been described as the world's worst serial killer. The Guinness Book of World Records actually lists Pedro Lopez, who is another Colombian known in Colombia as the Monster of the Andes. However, even though he is in the book as the largest scale serial killer of modern times, Garavito is actually, in terms of the number of confirmed victims, he actually tops the list, followed by Lopez. Now, Garavito was born on January 25th of 1957, and though his mother is technically unknown, her identity is unknown, it's speculated that she had been a longtime prostitute. And during her time of working as a prostitute, you okay, baby? His mother had been brutally abused by his father, who was a heavy alcoholic and would also abuse Garavito's siblings. Around this time, Garavito's father would force him to watch his mother have sex with her clients, and would actually allow his mother's clients to sexually abuse and molest Garavito. Excuse me a moment. Sorry about that. Now, due to his mother's heavy addiction to drugs, she would not do anything to stop the abuse by the clients, partially because of her own abuse and torture that she went through with Garavito's father. Now, Garavito eventually did run away from home, and he survived on the Colombian streets. At the age of only 8 years old, Garavito was found by a pedophile. The man promised Garavito a hot meal and a place to rest, and Garavito accepted, but the man led Garavito to an abandoned house where he was then sexually assaulted. A few days later, Garavito joined a gang for protection. Now, the gang often robbed the Colombian civilians for food, money, and cars, which they would then exchange for money to chop shops. He then began, excuse me, I don't know why I said that way. He then began working soon after, traveling a great amount to keep up with different job demands around Colombia. Now, despite often moving, he actually had a girlfriend named Teresa. She had a small child, which she recalls Garavito get along with very well. And Garavito was actually known by his friends to be very kind, yet he was easily angered. Now, Garavito's victims were clearly identified by their age, gender, and social status. He targeted boys between the ages of 6 and 16 who were either homeless, peasants, or orphaned. He would approach the young boys either on the crowded streets or alone in the countryside and lure them away, bribing them with small gifts such as money, candy, or odd jobs. He would sometimes disguise himself as different characters who could be seen as legitimately offering jobs, such as a priest, a farmer, or a street vendor, or a drug dealer. So he would also switch up his disguises to sort of prevent suspicions or being recognized by the locals. Now, warning, this is about to get very graphic. Once he had the trust of a child, Garavito would walk with the boy until they were tired, till the little boy was tired and vulnerable, which then made him easy to handle. First, their hands were bound. Then, Garavito would remove their clothes and proceed to torture, rape, and sometimes decapitate them. Usually, the boy would have his buttocks stabbed and sharpened objects inserted inside of him. His testicles were often severed. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce that correctly. I don't know. This is hard to read, so I'm stumbling over it. His testicles were often severed and placed into his mouth. The bodies of the children were all found completely naked, and all had bite marks and signs of anal penetration. Bottles of lubricant were found near the bodies, along with empty liquor bottles. Most corpses showed signs of prolonged torture. Now, starting in 1992, boys between the ages of 6 and 16 began disappearing rapidly from the streets of Colombia. Due to the decades-long civil war, many children in Colombia were poor, homeless, or orphaned, which gave Garavito basically his pick of the litter. For years, these murders had gone unnoticed because many of the victims had no police report filed on their disappearance. Clusters of bodies had begun popping up all over Colombia. Yet authorities did not take much notice until 1997, when mass graves were uncovered. The large number of missing children called for a widespread investigation, as these killings were not confined to a specific area. They were happening all over Colombia. In February of 1998, the bodies of 2 naked children were found lying next to each other on a hill. The next day, only meters away, another child's naked body was found. All 3 bodies had their hands bound and bore signs of sexual abuse. The victims' necks were severely cut, and bruises were on their backs, genitals, legs, and buttocks. The murder weapon was found in the same area as the bodies, and a note had been found at the crime scene that had an address written on it, and this information led them back to Garavito's girlfriend. She was contacted but told police that she had not seen Garavito in months. She did, however, give the police a bag that he had left in her possession, which contained a number of his belongings. These items included pictures of young boys, detailed journals of his murders, and tally marks of his victims, and a few bills. This new information led them to Garavito's residence, but the property was empty. Detectives believed that Garavito was either traveling for work or away attempting to find his next victim. He was picked up by the local police just a few days later on April 22nd on an unrelated charge of attempted rape against an adolescent boy. A homeless man had been close enough to observe the struggle between Garavito and the child and felt it necessary to intervene, thankfully. Garavito was arrested, and unbeknownst to them, the police had in their custody the man who was the most wanted killer in Colombia. Garavito was questioned about the local killings and his attempted rape charges. Police speculated that he had planned on killing the young boy if the bystander had not intervened. After a short interrogation, detectives suspected Garavito of being La Bestia, although he had insisted on his innocence. The detailed description of his killings apparently brought Garavito to tears. For Colombia's Justice Department, however, getting Garavito's confession was not enough. Garavito had an eye condition that was rare and only found in men in a particular age group. His glasses were specifically designed for this unique condition. These particular glasses were found at the site of one of the mass graves. Garavito also left behind empty liquor bottles, his underwear, and occasionally his shoes. DNA was found on the victims, as well as probably some of these items. Police scheduled everyone in the entire jail where Garavito was being detained to get an eye exam. The outcome of this eye exam would help police pair the glasses to Garavito. They made it mandatory for all of the prisoners, which reduced Garavito's suspicion and kept him from lying about his eyesight in the exam. Now, while Garavito was out of his cell getting the exam, detectives took DNA samples from his pillow and living area. The DNA found on the victims was a match to the DNA found in Garavito's cell. Garavito then confessed to murdering 140 children and was charged with the killing of 172 altogether throughout Colombia. He was found guilty on 138 of the 172 accounts, and the others are still ongoing. Garavito was sentenced to 1,853 years and 9 days in prison, the lengthiest sentence in Colombian history. However, Colombian law limits imprisonment to 40 years, and because Garavito helped police find the victims' bodies, his sentence was reduced further to 22 years. Garavito is currently serving his sentence in a maximum security prison in Colombia, and he is held separately from all of the other prisoners for fear that he would be murdered if he was in the regular population. He is scheduled to be released from prison in 2021. Colombian law, however, says that those who have committed crimes against children are not eligible to receive any benefits of justice or from justice, and are required to at least spend 60 years of their sentence in prison. And in Garavito's case, this would mean that the national maximum 40-year imprisonment limit, and especially the reduction to 22 years for helping the police, both are considered those benefits of justice, and he would not be applicable for them. So it's questionable whether or not he is going to be getting out next year. Now, many Colombians criticize the possibility of his early release. In recent years, Colombians have increasingly felt that Garavito's sentence was not sufficient punishment for his crimes. Some have even argued that he deserves either life in prison or the death penalty, neither of which exist in Colombia. Now, Colombian law had no provision or method at the time to impose a sentence longer than what Garavito received, and the law has since increased the maximum penalty for such crimes to 60 years in prison. So, again, it's questionable. Is he going to be released next year, or will he have to serve longer than that? Hopefully longer. During an interview in 2006 with a journalist popularly known as Piri mentioned that during the interview, Garavito actually tried to minimize his actions and expressed intent to start a political career in order to help abused children. So that is the story of Luis Garavito, which is an insane story, horribly tragic how many victims he was able to get away with before the police even really noticed what was going on or took an active investigation into it. So my heart obviously goes out to the families of those victims, not to mention just the state of living in Colombia during that time, and everything must have just been awful. So it's just a heartbreaking case all around. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button below. If you have any suggestions for videos, true crime or otherwise, please leave those in the comments below. If you liked this video and you would like to see more, please hit the subscribe button, as I upload new videos every Wednesday. I know. And other than that, I will see you guys next week. Time for me to go. Bye.